Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Cynthia Ng. Walk-in PPVs for teenagers to be announced tomorrow. And cash flow still a big issue. SMEs say 500 ringgit relief not enough. That's coming up. Fully vaccinated travelers from overseas now have the option of home quarantine when they arrive in Malaysia. This will, however, only be allowed for those whose residence is considered suitable for home quarantine and for those who have tested negative for COVID-19 with a PCR test.
Travelers can apply for home quarantine beginning 8 a.m. Tuesday by visiting moh.gov.my. While travelers arriving from September 28th are required to make an application through a new portal HQA. The application must be made 7 to 10 days prior to the date of entry into Malaysia. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said that the current application process, which uses an email address, has caused a backlog of 6,000 applications.
Teenagers from as young as 12 years old begin receiving their COVID-19 jabs today with the launch of the vaccination program for adolescents. The government is targeting to have 60% of students receive at least one dose by November and to have 80% fully vaccinated before the 2022 school session begins.
The program targets 3.2 million teenagers aged 12 to 17. Jabs will be given at schools or institutions, health clinics and hospitals, as well as walk-ins at selected vaccination centres nationwide. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said the list of special PPVs for walk-in vaccinations will be announced tomorrow. They will be given the Pfizer vaccine while health authorities study the use of the Sinovac jab on teenagers. He added that there is currently no plans to vaccinate children below 12 years of age, as the National Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency has not approved any vaccine for the age group. Meanwhile, Khairi assured that there is enough supply to vaccinate adolescents and administer booster shots. Priority for the administration of the third dose will be given to high-risk groups.
The booster is only offered to people who should have it. Saya muda, tidak ada morbidity setakat ini, insyaAllah. Ya? So I shouldn't be taking a booster because I'm taking a vaccine from somebody else. So booster ini kita kena bagi kepada mereka yang mengikut pakar boleh diberikan booster. Mereka yang 60 tahun ke atas, yang ada comorbidity, yang immunocompromised. The boosters are for that people. Those group of people, not healthy people right now.
The booster shots are expected to be administered early October.
More domestic travel attractions will be open to the public soon. Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister Datuk Sri Nancy Shukri said the government is discussing the possibility of allowing interstate tourism and a decision on the matter will be announced soon.
Several locations have been identified for this purpose, including Fraser's Hill and Genting Highlands. Meanwhile, she added that discussions with relevant agencies are also ongoing regarding the opening of Langkawi Island to international tourists. So far, the government has allowed intrastate tourism activities only for states under Phase 2 and above of the National Recovery Plan for fully vaccinated individuals.
More than 4,000 children have lost their parents or guardian due to COVID-19 up till last week. According to Women, Family and Community Development Minister Datuk Sri Rina Harun, out of the total, 154 of them became orphans after losing both parents to the virus.
Speaking in Parliament today, she outlined several initiatives to assist the group, including 200 ringgit financial assistance for affected children under the age of 7. While those who are above 7 years old will be given 150 ringgit each. Rina said these children will be placed in welfare homes or with replacement families. Cash aid will also be extended to their parents or guardians.
A 500 ringgit allocation for SMEs is simply not enough to help businesses tide over. According to SME Association President Datuk Michael Kang, while more sectors of the economy have reopened, many businesses are still struggling with cash flow issues. He welcomes the government's latest Prihatin grant for SMEs, but urged for more measures to help companies that are still struggling.
Last week, the government announced an allocation of R500 million under the Prihatin Special Grant 4.0 to assist 1 million SMEs and micro SMEs to be dispersed in 2 tranches, ringgit 500 on Tuesday and another ringgit 500 in November.
They don't have cash. They don't have capital to run business anymore. So even if you give 500,000, 500 ringgit, I think you wouldn't be able to help. So what we have proposed is 5,000 ringgit for them, a grant for all those SME really they want to restart their business. 5,000 ringgit grant for startup, I think is workable. I think you can help them to regenerate their business. So then they can create more jobs. Then the economy will start stimulating.
Malaysia's micro SME sector accounts for 40% of the country's GDP. In July, former Minister of Entrepreneur Development and Corporative, Datuk Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, painted a grim outlook, saying up to 580,000 businesses risk closure by October if more economic sectors are not allowed to reopen. However, 2 months later, and with cash flow still an issue, what needs to be done?
The most important is micro entrepreneur. I think micro entrepreneur, MIDEC is the one who is in charge of micro and SME. I think they should work closely with the MCMC. I think Telecommunication Ministry, to work closely, and the Minister of Finance. I think these 3 ministries should come very closely and work together. And other than that, I think will be Minister of Economy. I think these 4 ministries have to work closely and to help the SME. I think SME, especially micro SME, they really need help.
Michael, who is also a member of the National Recovery Council, added that it is important not to sideline certain business sectors. For instance, SMEs in some retail and tourism sectors that still cannot operate need more subsidies to stay afloat.
We will go for a quick break. Stay with us.
Ingin jual dan beli kereta dengan mudah secara atas talian? Tak perlu risau tentang dokumen atau ke bank. Custom akan menguruskan dan boleh menghantar di mana jua anda berada. Senang je, layari custom.my. Custom je lah.
Selangor Darul Ehsan, the country's leading GDP contributor, with a workforce of over 3.6 million, is primed to become ASEAN's gateway for business. How is Invest Selangor playing its role in contributing to this? From industrial parks to aerospace, we will touch on digitalization and e-commerce, and how companies are braving through these challenging times. It's all going to be right here on Investment Insider Season 2, only on Astro AWANI. Welcome back. The nature of work is changing rapidly, especially since COVID-19. According to a survey by Randstad Malaysia, Malaysians are prioritizing work-life balance more than ever. Head of Operations Fahad Naeem said a hybrid working model will be the workplace of the future as employees seek better work-life arrangements.
Based on Randstad's latest survey, 62% employees prefer attractive salary and benefits, while 60% prefer organizations that offer work-life balance as their employee value propositions. Compared to 2020, there was a 21% increase in Malaysians who chose work-life balance as top value proposition in 2021.
So there are a total of 16 factors which we've been considering for many years when we do the survey. Before that, we have been giving 5 different factors when it comes to pick up your employer. Now the respondent list, were given 16 different, but it's still work-life balance and the salary came out to be the top. But again, every year we see a significant increase year to year where work-life balance is becoming the priority. So I think and down the road, a couple of years' time, looks like number one thing where people are going to look for in an ideal employer would be work-life balance.
The report also revealed 70% respondents worked remotely at some point in 2020, while 1 in 4 worked exclusively from home. However, Fahad said the challenges faced by employees was the transition to remote work.
It is so difficult to set the boundaries when you work from home between your personal life and work life. Means they need to make a deliberate efforts to make sure employees understand what is working hours, and they don't end up responding back to emails after dinner. It could be making sure that they are understanding that they have to limit the work-related conversations to emails and only work-related platform rather than switching it to WhatsApp, which is quite common nowadays.
As companies gear up to resume work from the office, Fahad says HR managers will need to review existing policies to suit post-pandemic future.
Employers basically now need to be, understood how they're going to be managed remotely, their staff and workforce. So if you look at the other factors, so HR policies need to be revised and changed to some extent, where now the expectation has definitely increased. And now employees are also expecting some level of work from home benefits. So it could be, purchasing some IT equipment, working from home. It could be some extra allowance, could be on a Wi-Fi or a data plan or a phone allowance or something. So these are some of the expectations which HR and organizations need to revise and think of how they're going to improve it. Some of the companies we've been speaking with, they have somewhat invested in a lot of different online tools in order to make sure that they are able to more effectively measure productivity from employees. So now the approach is changing in a remote environment from a process-driven to more outcome-driven.
Countries in Southeast Asia are further easing COVID restrictions as new cases are on the decline and vaccination speeds up. Vietnam will start to lift restrictions on capital Hanoi this week as most of the adult population is partially vaccinated. Authorities have removed checkpoints and said construction projects can resume from Wednesday, adding that further easing would follow as average new daily cases are down to just 20. Currently, 94% of the adult population of Hanoi has received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. Earlier this month, Vietnam also announced that they will try their own tourism sandbox scheme on Phu Quoc Island in the hopes of attracting 2 to 3 million tourists. The Philippines will reopen up to 120 schools for face-to-face classes for the first time since the start of the pandemic. According to a UNICEF report last week, the Philippines is among 17 countries globally where schools have been closed for the entirety of the pandemic. The face-to-face learning will be limited to 3 to 4 hours per session, with consent from parents and guardians required. New cases in Australia's New South Wales fell below 1,000 for the first time since late August. But Premier Gladys Berejiklian said residents must brace for October to be the worst month in terms of deaths and patients in ICU. With 53% of its adult population fully vaccinated, some restrictions were eased. Time limits for outdoor exercise were lifted, while the fully vaccinated can gather outside in groups of 5. Boxer turned politician Manny Pacquiao will run for president of the Philippines next year after railing against corruption in the government. Incumbent Rodrigo Duterte, who is barred from a second term by the country's constitution, declared last month that he would run for vice president.
Pacquiao, who is a senator, announced his nomination yesterday, representing a rival faction in Duterte's ruling party, PDP Laban. The announcement drew mixed reactions. Some welcomed his bid, while others said he lacks experience to take on the job. Meanwhile, Duterte's close aide, Senator Christopher Lawrence, or Bongo, was also nominated to run as president, but has so far declined. In the Philippines, the president is limited to one 6-year term, and Duterte's term is due to end by June next year. Political analysts said Duterte's run as VP is seen as a backdoor to the presidency.
At least 8 people were killed after a student opened fire at a university in the Russian city of Perm. According to Russia's Interior Ministry, the gunman was detained shortly after launching the attack. Authorities said the gunman is alive and being treated in hospital. Footage showed students jumping from the first-floor windows to escape the building where the shooting happened. The 18-year-old suspect posted a photo of himself on social media, posing with a rifle, helmet and ammunition. This is the second school shooting in Russia this year. In May, a gunman opened fire at a school in the city of Kazan, killing 7 students and 2 teachers. With COVID-19 SOPs still largely based on surface disinfection, there hasn't been enough focus on improving indoor air quality. Tonight on Consider This, we speak to our guests about measures to ensure good ventilation. And that is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news updates on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro AWANI app. And that is all we